Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the AI Business Show. Today I have with me Jean. Jean is a person I've followed on Instagram for the past year. He puts a lot of content out. He has a podcast. He was one of my inspirations to start my podcast, actually. Jean, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Ahmed. It's so good to be here, and I really enjoyed the way you introduced me, and I'm grateful to be one of your inspirational people.
Jean, I've been following you for a while. Who is Jean? What do you do? Just give us like in a minute or two. Just tell us who are you.
Yeah, sure. First of all, hello to everyone who's gonna be watching this. My name is Jean Kalfayan. I'm a Lebanese guy. I come from Armenian descent. I've been on social media and Instagram since 2017. I've started with vlogs and comedy skits, and I'm now a full-on entrepreneur, professional podcaster, and content creator. I've worked with startups for the past 4 years on business development, innovation, project management, and so on. And I basically do what I like to do. I do what interests me at every certain moment. I have no inhibitions. And that's it for now. Let's see where we go about it during the episode.
As I mentioned before, you were one of my the inspirations to start the podcast. Why did you start? And you have the JK show, that's your main podcast, right?
Yeah.
Why did you start it? Like, what was your main purpose behind starting the podcast?
Yeah. So in 2019, I used to watch around 6 to 7 hours of YouTube a day.
Oh, wow.
And while just checking, I always like being in front of a camera, even though I'm an introverted guy by nature. I'm really shy,
Okay.
but I love being in front of a camera and I love expressing myself. And I've leaned towards podcasts since 2 3 years now. I love podcasts, and when I saw Logan Paul's podcast, I think it was named Impulsive. It
Oh,
still is to this date. It was like my spark to, okay, why there isn't any podcast like this in Lebanon? So I'm just gonna do it. And there are two things I love. I love people, and I love stories. I love hearing people talk about their own experiences, their own stories. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it, but do it on video and release the episodes publicly for everyone to see. So I started the JK show, which was previously JK Storytells and previously the Business Talk. So I pivoted a lot. But fast forward to today, I have over 70 episodes on 4 different channels. I've podcasted with more than 80 people, and I absolutely love it.
how did you start? I want to hear the story of your first podcast. For me, when I wanted to start, I'm a super shy person. I always think about how people are gonna judge.
Yeah,
What I did, I just went on Zoom. I put the camera on, my laptop camera on, I started
yeah,
recording, and I put it out on YouTube. I'm like, I don't care what's ever gonna happen. Uh,
yeah.
what was your first story?
Actually, what you said at the end is actually the way to go about it. This is what you need to think about because either way, people are going to judge you no matter what you do. So in 2019, in early 2019, I was working as a business developer in a startup incubator in Beirut, in Lebanon. And after I finished my contract with them and a few months passed by, and I was starting to become interested in podcasts, I talked to them. I said, hey guys, what about I use your space or one of your offices to film a podcast that I really want to film? So they just said yes. We were on very good terms. So you know how when you start something, you start talking to your friends for help. Like a friend who has a camera, a friend who knows how to edit. So you
Right.
just get a favor from here, a favor from here, and you manage to get it all for free. So this is what I did. And even the guest, I got my friend as a guest, and we
Okay.
just went on for 40 minutes to talk about like the economy, the rat race, 9 to 5 jobs. It was mostly bullshit. But I really enjoyed it, and it was very cringe. If I look back to it now, it was very cringe. It was hilarious, but this is how I started. And afterwards, my photographer friend once wanted to charge me money for new podcasts. I didn't have the money, so I just used my phone. I still have it here, and I used a broken mic. I still have it over there in front of me that I got from AliExpress for $10. It never worked, but it looks nice. So I used that for like two, three, actually, no, for like 15 episodes. And then I started gaining a little bit of income and started investing in my podcast. But about the first episode, yeah, it was bad, it was terrible, but I'm proud I did it because I had to start somewhere.
Right. And what you just mentioned is super not interesting, and super people should know it. And know. We have the mentality, especially in Lebanon or most entrepreneurs, like they want to be perfect. And they always look to start at the perfect point. And this is the mentality to fail. You should just start and then perfect as you go. And
Yeah.
what you did tells you that this is a fact. Like go start and then perfect as you go. How do you get guests to your podcast? Like you're interviewing great guests, people who have achieved success. How do you go and get these guests to come on your pod? How do you convince them?
Yeah. So when I first started, my first 10 to 13 episodes, I just did what someone advised me to do. And this is something I truly believe in. Whenever you start a business, I treat my podcast as a business. So whenever you start a business or anything like this, your first clients, or in my case, guests, should always be people in your network. Because if the people in your network don't trust what you do, then who will? You know?
Mm.
So I'm very connected on Instagram with the entrepreneurship community. So I started getting my friends and my network as guests for 10 to 12 episodes. Then I started formulating like a cold outreach strategy where I talked to potential guests on LinkedIn, Instagram, emails. I started to go a little bit international. So I formulated a nice script that introduced people to what I do, why I want them on my podcast, and what being on my podcast could benefit them for. And it went on from there. I get around to this date one guest a week. I think this is my go-to time frame. I like to do one podcast a week. And yeah,
Yeah. Okay, I did the opposite. I wanted to start with my network,
yeah,
but I had three, four entrepreneurs in my network, and they all said, "Oh no, later." So I had to start doing cold outreach to other entrepreneurs,
yeah,
and this
yeah.
was hard at the beginning, but I got lucky in a way. I had a good cold outreach, and I got them on my pod. Uh, John, you have 840 subscribers now on your podcast, and it's growing. How do you have any growth strategies, or do you just put the episode out and people are starting to get interesting in it, or do you have any specific growth strategies?
To be honest, no, I don't have a specific growth strategy, but it's because my podcast is so niched, it targets very specific people interested in startups and entrepreneurship and business. Like it's not entertaining, it's not comedy, it's not something you're gonna watch for 10 seconds, have a laugh, and then leave. Um, so what I do is I film each podcast on Zoom, just like we're doing now. I record it, then throw it out there on YouTube. Then I take clips that I really enjoy and I put them on Instagram, on TikTok, and recently I've started doing YouTube Shorts. But um, I, my growth has been slow, like relatively slow. I got 800 subscribers in like 2 years, maybe of podcasting, 2 years and a half, which is okay to me. I've had podcasts with over 1K views. But I know people who had Mr. Beast, for example, had to do around 300 YouTube videos before he got famous. I just have 40 videos on my channel. My strategy right now is to keep building up content because having a certain number of episodes in podcast, it's a numbers game. You need to have
Right.
big volume of episodes, and of course, you need to have good guests. But they make up your credibility. They open up so many doors for me, so many opportunities, and it got a little easier for me to get work or to get project because I have uh, so many important people in my podcast. Important for me, of course, they are not universally important. So this is regarding how I try to grow my podcast.
The Mr. Beast story is really nice, and people don't know
Yeah,
it. Mr. Beast started doing YouTube when he was 13 years old, and he didn't have any success up until he was 21 or 22 years old.
yeah,
And people don't know this story. They think Mr. Beast just started on YouTube and became
yep,
famous. But there's a
exactly.
10 year of failure, 10 year of putting videos out that no one wants up until he got to success. And this is a lesson for every entrepreneur or everyone who's working on any business out there. Just go do it again and again up until you get to your goal.
100%.
You talk about opportunities. You speak about opportunities the podcast has gotten you. What kind of opportunities are there? Like, did you get projects because of the podcast? And did you
Yep.
build a great network? Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, of course, of course. So the number one benefit I get from podcasting is I get to grow my network in an exponential way. Why? Because every guest I get, I have a 10-minute call before recording the podcast so I can brief them and do a structure and outline for the podcast. And this gets me some sort of a bond with the guest. And even before that, I have a discovery call with them, a totally separate 30, 40-minute call where we introduce each other and network. And I make sure to mention that hello to the guest. Let's have a discovery call where we get to network and make acquaintance. So I make it clear that for the guest that hey, I don't want you just as a guest for my podcast. I want you as a member in my network. Then we can just randomly have a podcast. So later on, we stay in touch. I always follow up with the guests after a month. I ask them how they are now, what they are doing, and I explain to them what I can help them with. And many times, actually, 6 to 7 times, some guests approached me with projects that they have or with things that they needed help with, or referred me to other people who needed things,
Oh,
and it
nice.
helped me get projects, get clients, and increase my credibility and my name in the market.
Okay. And that's a good story. Uh,
Yeah,
Other than the podcast, you have a lot of content you put out about your life, about trips, about hiking trips you do. What's the
yeah,
purpose behind putting this content? We get the podcast is something interesting you like doing it. What's the purpose behind doing your own channel about
yeah,
your life and
yeah,
just vlogging in a way?
yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I have a personal channel as well. It's under my name. I post adventure vlogs there, hikes, and so on. Why? Because I believe it's fun for me. This is something I really like. I like to document things that I do. I like people to see what I do. And I believe in something that you are only relevant in the seconds that people spend watching your content. Every minute outside of having them scrolled past you, you're no longer relevant. You don't even exist in their world. So why not make as much as time they spend on my content to make it fun? I have my business content. I have my fun content. I like to put them all on my Instagram, separate them on YouTube. It doesn't matter. But I like to do stuff that I enjoy, and I like to share to share happiness, my happiness with people around me. And I believe this is fun, and it gets people to see different side of someone who does business. It's not always a laptop and the screen and I'm on an office. I go out, I have fun, I hike in nature, I get dirty. It doesn't matter.
What's the end goal behind the podcast and the content creation? Do you have like
Yeah.
we spoke about Mr. Beast, or we speak about influencers or people who have big content on YouTube. What's your end goal behind it?
Yeah, this is a great question, Ahmad. I don't necessarily have an end goal.
Okay.
Like, I don't have a point to reach where, okay, I did what I had to do with my podcast. That's it. For now, for the time being, for this year and the next year, I'm gonna keep building. I'm gonna keep podcasting because now I do it on a professional level, which means I get paid to podcast besides the JK show. I podcast on different channels for different projects. So for now, I want to keep building that. I want to build a portfolio of at least 100, 200 people that I've interviewed. And if just 40 episodes got me so many opportunities, then imagine what 200 can.
Right.
So this is what I'm aiming for right now. I'm aiming to build up my podcasting portfolio, and I'm just gonna see where it will get me. Who knows? Maybe next month I'm gonna be interested in food reviews. Who knows?
And there's a lot out there, and something I'm always interested about is how the like job market changes along the years. We always
Yeah,
used to be in factories, then offices, then with COVID, people work from homes,
yeah,
and now people are interested. They don't want to get back to their jobs because they're filming TikToks, they're going on YouTube, they're doing on Instagram, and these are jobs. People don't like them, but it's you're creating content for people to watch, and
yeah,
people are getting paid because of that, and that may be the future to go on. Uh,
yeah. I totally agree.
Looking at your content, you put a lot of content about freelancing. You had a course about it.
Yeah.
What is freelancing?
Freelancing is basically choosing a skill that you have and putting it to use at your own time, your own schedule, and your own working hours. To be more specific, I created the first and only Upwork intensive course in the region. I've trained over 40 people on how to use Upwork. And Upwork is a platform where you can freelance on. For those of you that don't know, you can put your skills out there and just start applying to jobs and get paid in dollars no matter where you are on the planet. So I love freelancing because I'm a person who likes to work whenever they want to, and I happen to work around 24/7, but like it's how I want to work. I do like office. I absolutely love going to the office, but right now I don't work in an office. But it's something I'm comfortable in. I'm comfortable working wearing my shorts, my slippers. It's a lifestyle. Freelancing is some sort of a lifestyle. It has a lot of cons. It's not all rainbows and sunshines, but it's just something that I'm interested in and I'm trying to make the best of it.
Okay, let's take that and chop it. خلينا نبلش. And I'm a
Yeah.
freelancer. Take me through the steps. I'm a freelancer. How do I get my first client or job? Then how do I get paid, especially in a country like Lebanon where we have a failed banking system? Uh, and then later on, let's speak about the cons and benefits. But let's start as a freelancer. How do I get my first job? How do I perform a project, and how do I get paid?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, it's all about choosing which skill you want to freelance,
Okay.
and this is where you need to take time. There's not going to be a skill where when you're born mastering it. It could need a year to learn a skill professionally, and it could take a month. You can choose between design, copywriting, animation, video editing, script writing, development. To like, I can go on and on and on and list every single skill that you can learn. So what I would do is I just go to Google and list all the skills that I may be interested in and start learning them one by one. Whenever I get bored of one, I scratch it, I go on to the other. And when I feel I'm comfortable with, I think I can be good at it, I just double down on the focus on it and go 110% on it. After this, it comes where you choose the platform where you want to freelance on. It could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, or it could be a professional platform like Upwork. You set up your profile, it's all pretty easy. Like you just fill in the blanks on the platform, and then you start to see how will I get my first client. So to answer your question, we all know that freelancers write proposals to client. They go up to them and tell them, hey, my name is etc. I provide this skill. What do you think of it? Okay. But the thing is how you write this proposal and how you approach the client. And I want to answer all of this question about how to get your first client with one sentence. And it is, in order to get client, all you need to do is to get a meeting or to open a discussion and not to close a sale. You are very, very unlikely to close a sale from the first point of contact you make with a client.
Right.
What you need to do is to establish a relationship, ask them for a meeting, go grab a coffee, ask them to chat with you. Then you can get to know their problems specifically and how to exactly tackle their weak points in order to sell whatever service that you have to sell. So this is how you get your client. And I believe you asked me about getting paid in Lebanon.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a bit tricky. So, in Lebanon, we don't have a banking system right now. I believe it's inexistent.
Yes.
And even if we do, even if you're lucky to have a fresh dollar bank account, you have hectic fees and papers, and they do everything not to allow you to withdraw your money. So we have something called crypto, which is something I truly believe in. It is how 90% of my income comes through. Nobody asks me any question. I take them in cash at almost zero fees, no matter how big or small the amount is, and I can just carry them in my phone. Um, so this is one way to get paid. We have OMT. They have an alternative to the banking sector. They have the OMT Visa card recently. And we Lebanese people always have turnarounds, around problems. You know, of course, about this. Like every problem, we can find 100 alternatives for it. But for me personally, crypto is my number one priority to get paid with. Even for local clients, if they can pay me in crypto, I would get paid in crypto.
But- And the reason I asked about freelancing and take me through the steps is I know in Lebanon especially we have a lot of talent. We have people that
Yeah.
are smart. We have people that are hardworking. For some reason, they believe that because they're in Lebanon, they can't perform any work. They have to go out to Europe or any other country to perform work. And I
Yeah.
always say
I
that's
totally
not,
understand you.
and I always say that's not true. You could create work and you could do something wherever you are in any country you are. I'm in the US and I see people who are failures. I see people who don't have jobs, who
Yeah.
can't afford their homes, and they're in the US. So it, you could be anywhere you want, but if you build a skill, you try to find jobs for your skills, you're gonna be able to do it. And when you said go and learn a couple of skills and apply them, our common friend Khalid, and
Yeah.
this is something I liked about him. The guy just any product you throw at him, he'll he'll go and learn it and he'll apply
Yeah.
a job. And this is one example. Go learn any job, any skill and go apply it. Uh,
And by the way, Ahmad, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to comment on when you told me that some people in Lebanon think that being in this country doesn't allow them to work. I just want to tell them, guys, if you're watching this podcast, you're not in Lebanon. If you have this phone or any internet connected device, you are everywhere in the world. I promise you. You I'm in the US, I'm in Dubai, I'm in Ireland, wherever you want. You just need internet and the device. And don't tell me some people don't have an internet and the device. I'm not God. I don't want to save everyone. But if you're watching this podcast, means you have internet and you have a connected device. You can use any skill that you learn, and you can get clients from every corner in the world, and you can get paid in Lebanon. You just have to want it bad enough. You just have to know and understand that efforts need to be put in there, time needs to be put in there, and it is not an easy road, and you need to accept it. No one's going to come and hand you over an opportunity and tell you, here's all the money you need, no excuses needed. It's not going to happen.
exactly, exactly. There's hard work that needs to be put down for you to achieve something. Uh,
Yeah.
you just have to get this concept and do it. A lot of entrepreneurs I hear when they speak here in the US or anywhere around the world, and when they get asked, "Oh, what happens if you lose all your money?" They're gonna build it up again because they have a skill they accumulated over the years. And when you
Yeah.
have a skill, you don't need money because you create money.
100%. 100%.
We spoke about the banking system and the failure of the banking system. I want to jump in and speak about some of the problems entrepreneurs have in Lebanon and that
Yeah.
they face. I'm outside of Lebanon now, and you're in Lebanon, so you have a better understanding of the problems the
Yeah.
entrepreneurship ecosystem has. Could you speak about some of the problems you guys are facing?
Yeah, sure. So in Lebanon, I believe, or from what I have seen, we're stuck between two extremes. You either have heavily funded startups or purely bootstrapped startups that don't have any access to funds. In the entirety of Lebanon, we probably have one functioning venture capital, one company that still injects funds into startups. We have incubators, we have a good incubator ecosystem, but we don't have sustainable growth. So you have a lot of startups, but you don't have a lot of growing startups. Um, the startups I've worked with and the ones who have actually gotten major significant growth have been either two ways. Either they got outside funding from a company outside of Lebanon, or they took it upon their own self to bootstrap it and take it to the next level. And some of them even got out of incubators because they are not receiving the help that they were promised to, or that they are not finding easy access to resources and to funds. And you and I know that money or revenue is the lifeline of a startup. If a startup doesn't get funding, constant funding, it's not going to survive. We cannot sugarcoat this because it's a startup. It's not going to make profit the first year. It's not going to make profit 3 years after. It's going to need time to be able to break even and then start making profit. And all of this time, whether it's 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, it's going to need constant injection of money. And this is something that Lebanese startups are lacking.
Um, I'm going to debate a little bit with you over here.
Yeah, yeah,
Funding is important to all startups. That's true. But I believe funding is a way for you to fuel your growth. And what I mean is and I always take this approach. When you're starting a startup, forget about funding for the first year, let's say. Go ahead and build your MVP at least. Start getting customers, start getting these customers to pay you, and then go out to funding.
yeah.
And the reason I say that, because when you go out to funding, you have a product, you have paying customers. When you're receiving funding, you're not diluting 20% or 30% of your company. Instead, you're diluting 10% or 5%. And when I started in the startup ecosystem, I was a person that's, I want to get funding. All my goal is to speak to VCs. Now I'm a person that, okay, I want to build bootstrapped as long as I can before getting funding, because when I'm bootstrapped, I'm in a better position when I go to speak to VC fund. So I always
Yeah.
tell any startup who's starting right now, go ahead and build your MVP, start getting customers, and then later on, if you need the money, go out to VC funds. You don't need VCs from the first moment. And
Yeah, of course, of course,
that's
of course, you're totally right, and I agree with you on this. But as we said in the initial podcast, and you mentioned it as well, start before you're ready, because you're never going to be 100% ready. So you're not going
exactly.
to have the perfect product. Go build your MVP, build your prototype, start to sell, start a beta version. But what I was referring to, just so we don't misunderstand each other, that there is a funding problem for Lebanese startups. So the startups that choose to go to VCs, choose to go get funding, are not finding it a lot in Lebanon. You
Okay.
know, they are finding it abroad. And whether we want to, how do I say this? Whether to accept it or not, 90% of startups will need funding later or not in their growth stage. Of
That's
course,
true.
at first, you can always bootstrap, and bootstrapping is the best thing ever if you are able to build your product or service. But later on, if you want to actually grow and like become a big established startup, you're gonna have to access something that is lacking in Lebanon.
And a big example of a startup that I gave that started in Lebanon, and that now it's one of the best known startups in the MENA region, is
I have a
Anghami.
feeling, Anghami, yeah, yeah,
Miami started in Lebanon, and they're one of the rare startups in the region that's on the exchange right now. So that tells you, and I've spoken with many investors and many entrepreneurs ahead of me, and they always say starting in the Lebanese market is a huge way of starting, because you prove your concept inside a hard market. So when you grow outside to different markets that are easier, it becomes easier for you to acquire customers, to
yeah.
get different, to
You're
grow
totally right.
more.
Yeah, you're totally right. And Anghami moved out of the Lebanese market few years back. They moved their headquarters to Abu Dhabi.
Mhm.
Their funding isn't never came from Lebanon in the recent years, and this is why I've been telling you, like, they bootstrapped, they built on their own, but you will get to a point where when you want the funds, you want to go global, there's a high chance you're not going to find it here, and this is why we need to, like, I cannot do anything about it. I'm still a child, but like if anyone here hears us and has ايد طايله مثل ما بيقولوا, we need
Funding.
VCs, we need
Right.
funding houses, we need to inject more money into Lebanese startups in a sustainable, structured way, not throwing out grants at random, but like yeah, this is what we need to do. I think this is what I believe.
Quick question, and because you know more better than me, who's the VC fund that's still functioning in Lebanon up until now?
It's FNDNG.
Okay.
It's after the Beirut blast. I think it was the last remaining functioning VC in Lebanon, and and I got to meet one of their co-owners. They have like very tough criteria to accept a startup to fund, because they are one or the last active VC, so they cannot afford to take high risks.
Okay. Okay. We spoke about startups, the problems in startups. When you go and work at the startups, what are the skills you put on the table, you provide for a startup?
Yeah. So mainly I participate in all innovative activities, from the smallest one like brainstorming to planning, creating, and executing ideas.
Okay.
And if you want to put them under an umbrella, it's startup project management. So startups have internal and external projects. Internal projects could be like product building, product design, setting up a department, running a marketing campaign. I deliver creative value towards this on how to go about it. I'm not a marketing guy. I'm a sales guy. I'm a sales guy who loves innovation and loves creativity. So I participate in that. And if it's an external project like a company launching a product launch event, setting up a project that is outside of the office. I can handle this from A to Z. I've had previous experience 4 months ago. I've handled a 5-figure project. It was more than $10,000, executed in the heart of Beirut. Worked with government officials, worked with millionaire entrepreneurs to execute it, and I tell you, it's one of the best things you can get involved to in is project management.
I love that. Can you give us examples of some startups you worked with, names or what these startups
Yeah,
did?
of course, of course. So this is gonna be like a shout out segment.
Okay.
First one to come to mind, and I always give this example, is 3D Maker Shop. This is a 3D printing startup and the pioneering one in Lebanon. It's the best.
Okay.
They sell 3D printers, they maintain 3D printers, they give workshops to kids and adults on 3D printers, and they have their own e-commerce store. They used to be located in an incubator where I used to work with them as a business developer, and now they moved out to a full floor in Jummaizi. They have a full on
Wow.
office with 15 members of staff between engineering and administrative. I got to work with them actually last month. We filmed a documentary for them. Another startup called Greenwave. It is an agri-tech startup. They build a hydroponic plantational device, which means it is indoor farming. You can
Okay.
plant crops and grow food 10 times faster and 10 times cleaner with no smell, no insects inside of your house.
Wow.
This is a second startup. I've worked with a tire shop actually a few years back. I've worked with Works Arabia, which is one of the biggest e-commerce startups in Lebanon right now. They allow people to set up their own website with payment gateways and fresh dollar accounts with Bank of Beirut. Let me see. I've worked with a lot of NFT projects such as Beehive, Aces of Ventures, Nest Arcade in Canada. This is not in Lebanon.
Wow.
It is an $80,000 project I've worked with. So yeah, this is a small list of the things that are on top of my mind.
Okay. We spoke about startups you've worked with. I'm curious to see what startup ideas do you have in mind? They're like, okay, if I wasn't doing the podcast and if I didn't do all these projects, I'm gonna go build this startup.
Yeah, I usually don't share this, but I'm gonna talk about this because I really don't care. I've always wanted to do, and I think I'm gonna do this one day, hopefully in the next 10 years. I want to do a content creation hub, which I imagine to be renting out a huge warehouse where I divide it into at least 50 rooms, 5 rooms specifically set up for podcasts, 5 rooms for content creation, rooms for as a film studio, product design, where creators and people who want to do content and everyone who wants to film, to use equipment, to do their own stuff can go ahead, rent out a dedicated office to them, have all the equipment at their service, and do whatever they want to do. And of course, this will come with a co-working space, with an own cafeteria, playroom with billiard and everything. Like, you know what I'm talking about, like
Okay.
a huge
Wow.
hub that connects all entrepreneurs, all into startup enthusiasts, and people who like to create content.
I love the idea. And do you want to do it in Lebanon or do you want to do it in any other place? If you had the funding, if you had
yeah.
everything, would
If
you
right
choose
now you
Lebanon?
gave me all the money to execute it, I would be in the dilemma between doing it in Lebanon or it's gonna be in the Middle East for sure. Because I believe the next 20 to 30 years are mainly gonna be for the Middle East and Asia. So it could be Dubai, it could be KSA. I've noticed they're becoming like huge on startups.
Right.
Like something like this, but of course Lebanon would be a priority, but it would all depend on the market. You know, I'm not gonna open somewhere I'm not gonna profit, because I don't want to make this an online thing. I want to make this a physical thing where people can physically come and enjoy.
Okay. Jean, for me, this was a great episode. I really learned more about you, how you think. I really love it. Do you have any plugs, anything you want to plug in if people want to get to know you more?
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you, Ahmad. It's been an amazing podcast. This is by far, and sorry for everyone listening to this, the best podcast I've been a guest on. I really enjoyed it. I felt really comfortable. Your questions were great, and I love that you chose to debate with me. I love debates. Usually people just ask me something and wait for my answer. And of course, I want to plug. I market myself every chance I get to. So, guys, if you got to this last point, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's called the JK Show. Search for me on any social media platform as Jean Kalfayan. YouTube, TikTok, Insta, Twitter, doesn't matter. And feel free to reach out to me if you need anything, any help, any contact, including you, Ahmad. I'm more than happy to help you with whatever you want. And that's it. And give a subscribe and follow to my boy Ahmad.
And thank you so much, John, for the kind words. And I just want to tell everyone something if they got here. When I wanted to start my podcast, I don't know how to edit, and I wanted to get someone to know how to edit for me. And I hit John up, and then probably 10 minutes back, he replies like, "Oh, I have this guy Khaled editing for me."
Yeah.
And I mentioned this because some people will be like, "Oh, I have my editor. I'm not gonna share him with anyone. I'm not gonna tell anyone about him." John was so generous. He told me about his editor, and he helped. So John is someone who's willing to help. He's in the system. So hit up John and watch his YouTube channel. Go follow him on Instagram. And thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here again.
Thank you. Thank you. The pleasure was all mine, Ahmad. And cheers and best of luck for anything you choose to do.